Hi everyone, welcome to the Wheels Across the Pacific Transnational Histories of the Automotive Industry conference, a joint conference between the Automotive Historians Australia and the Society of Automotive Historians in the USA. So welcome to everyone in Australia and the US. I'm Dr. Simon Lockery, the Vice President of the AHA. And first things first, we're just going to acknowledge the people of the various language groups and nations on whose unceded lands we conduct the conference around Australia today, and also the US. We respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past, present, and also acknowledge the traditional custodians of and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia and the US, where we conduct the business of this organisation. And at RMIT, we're quite well down the road in terms of this reconciliation process that we're doing in Australia at the moment. And we all take a personal journey on reconciliation as academics. And for me, I do a lot of food research. And so my transformational experience was learning there's actually 7 seasons in Australia, in particularly around Melbourne, not 4. And we're about to enter the Punit season, which is actually the season of the tadpoles, where the currawong start singing and the lyrebirds start preening, ready for a dance with the female and the male lyrebirds around the forest. And it is a time where tubers are actually ready to eat. So a harvest time. I'm very connected to the research I do around food. So I do suggest and invite everyone to start learning more about Indigenous knowledge and how it can affect your lives now and into the future as well, and connect with people and country. I'd like to introduce the AHA's President, Norm Darwin, who will give his president's welcome. So Norm, over to you.
Thank you, Simon. It's my pleasure to welcome you from RMIT in sunny Melbourne, although it's not so sunny today. It's about 11 degrees out there and overcast, but still we put up with that through winter and spring. We're looking forward to some better days. So I welcome you to this joint symposium, Wheels Across the Pacific, Transitional Histories of Automotive Industry, between the Society of Automotive Historians and Automotive Historians Australia. I would like to acknowledge the work of Bob Barr in convincing the SAH to run this joint symposium. Although I suspect he did not need to do much, we didn't need to do much convincing, and he didn't. Our past 3 conferences have had 2 past SAH presidents attend, Lewis and Don Capp, who have not only attended, but they've also made presentations which have been well received. On a sad note, I advise the passing of one of our early members, Larry O'Toole. Larry was a past presenter, a publisher, an author and a historian, and he passed away on the 8th of September following admittance to the Austin Hospital here in Melbourne with pancreatitis. I will now hand over to Harriet, our past president, and who will give you some information on the symposium's format. Thank you.
Thanks, Norm, and good morning, everyone, or good evening. So the idea behind this symposium, and it's the 6th annual conference that the AHA has run, I think that's right, the 6th, was to look at transnational histories of the automotive history, to expand our horizon out from Australia across the Pacific to the United States. And by transnational, what we mean is shared histories that extend and go beyond national boundaries. And so to this end, we are, the symposium is a collaboration between our 2 organisations. And we're rather hoping that it's the first in ongoing collaborations between automotive historians in Australia and America. Because in the end, we recognise the automotive industry has, from the late 19th century, when it sort of, as we understand it, began, has been a global enterprise. although this aspect of its history is often submerged under the national story. So we tend to talk about our own histories, but in fact, automotive has always been highly globalised. Hence, today we've got papers that explore ways in which Australian and American auto industries have shared various things like expertise, design, skills, studio practices, business structures, management paradigms, trade practices, and so on. So I'm really hoping that we have a stimulating conference and we can look at the ways in which we can further our united efforts, if you like. These papers, I'm right, aren't I, Simon? They go up online. At least the whole conference goes online, so you'll be able to capture it. It's captured and you'll be able to look at it afterwards. And it'll be a record of what we hope will be an ongoing, close collaborative way between the two organisations. So having said that, I'll send you back to Simon, who probably has got some housekeeping.
Thank you, Harriet. Just so everyone's aware, I know there's a program online you've probably checked out with some more detail, but this is just a summary of what we're going to be doing today. We're obviously in the introduction, and I'll have a couple of housekeeping things to let you know about that Harriet mentioned. Then we'll have 3 papers. They're all from our American friends to start with. Obviously, with the time difference, it's prudent to be doing that because I believe it's the early evening or mid-evening over there, depending if you're the East or West Coast. We'll then have a quick coffee break. We've got a few people here in the room at RMIT. We'll probably run down and get some coffees, and that gives you a chance online to go and have something to eat, maybe supper over in the US, and something to drink, maybe a tea rather than a coffee, so you're not you have a chance to go to sleep basically at some point. When we come back after the coffee break, we'll have 4 papers, and after that we'll have lunch. Maybe it's a late supper break over in the US, and we will definitely have a lunch here. We're actually going to be heading over to Mr. Took's, for those who are in the room, over at the State Library of Victoria. When we get back from lunch or supper, we have 2 final papers. After that, we'll close off with a bit of a summary of where we think we've come to with these discussions today, and a close, and we will have our president come back, Dr. Norm Darwin, just to again some thank yous and just some final thoughts before we close. So just some housekeeping. First things first, you might have noticed at the top, if you're online, that we are recording today. The reason for that is we generally will cut this up afterwards and put up the discrete presentations standalone, as well as the front matter and back matter likely as well. So if you do want to be edited out, can you please let us know via email? Otherwise, if you have talked or you're captured in some way, you might be just your little head bobbing up and down on the digital medium, the Teams medium. That will just be included in whatever we edit, unless you ask us not to. The other thing is just online etiquette. So I think we're all very familiar now with online forums. The main things I just note are that we are generally staying muted or cameras off if you're not speaking. We do have generally a time for questions at the end of each presentation today and tonight. And we'll just ask, if you look on either your browser or if you've downloaded the Teams app, that there are some icons up the top or the side. One of those icons is a reactions icon, a little emoji basically. And if you click that, there are a number of reactions you can make. There's one of them, put your hand up. When we're ready for questions, if you could put your hand up, and our friends here at RMIT will be able to let us know as conveners who's asking a question, so we can throw to you. So we have 2 absolute superstar designers from RMIT helping us through this event. Tian Min, who's here in in the room helping to curate the digital experience, and Lorena, who's come up with our graphic design and sort of, I suppose, event and brand identity for the day. They're both here to help. So I just want to acknowledge them as well. I know that there'll be more thank yous for them later, but they will be helping us navigate some of that stuff. So if you do have any issues, you can also drop stuff in the chat, and we can monitor that over time if there are any issues happening too. But it does look like so far it's smooth sailing. We don't have the plan B at this stage where we had to potentially move to Zoom. It looks like Teams is pretty stable today, which is a good thing. Sometimes these platforms can have their issues. So without further ado, we're actually 3 minutes early, which is great after the introductions. So on with the show. And what I might do first is introduce the first speaker. And the first speaker is a former SAH president, Louis Farrow, and he will be speaking firstly about the birth of the Australian auto industry. You can read more about his abstract online in the program, but what we're going to do now is transition to Louis' presentation,